widespread, or is it something that is relatively rare?
You're pounding him over the word widespread. I just would ask you,
Scott,
what is your tolerance for any fraud at all?
Is it widespread?
Absolutely. Over 6,000 people.
What is your bar for widespread?
She said, my bar is I want no tolerance. Okay. I have zero tolerance.
So what is your tolerance for American citizens?
By the way, this isn't the only place this is happening.
What is your tolerance for American citizens whose valid voter registrations are invalidated by incorrect databases? What's your tolerance for that?
New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill says a software error in the state's motor vehicle system improperly registered roughly 6,600 people who indicated they were not U.S. citizens between June 2023 and June 2024. Her administration's preliminary analysis says fewer than 400 of them later voted, and that there is no evidence at this point that any election was swayed.
The Democratic governor of New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill, revealing that a software glitch had added over 6,000 non-citizens to the state's voter rolls.
In June of 2023, nearly 3 years before I became governor, a serious software error in New Jersey's motor vehicle system led to the improper voter registration of what we believe to be roughly 6,600 people in our state. In the case of this error, some individuals indicated that they weren't citizens and weren't eligible to vote, but the software registered them anyway.
The governor said that about 400 of those people cast ballots, but there's no evidence at this time that any elections were swayed. She made the surprise disclosure just days after President Trump's address to the nation, where he claimed that hundreds of thousands of non-citizens are on the rolls across the country. Sherrill promised accountability and said that the vendor responsible for the system is being replaced. She also took a swipe at the president.
As the Trump administration tries to weaponize elections for political gain, I am ensuring that we protect our elections. Let me be clear. Donald Trump has zero credibility on the issue of election integrity.
The White House obviously seized on the news to help push Trump's voter ID bill, writing, quote, "Democrat glitch registers thousands of non-citizens to vote. Another reason to pass the Save America Act." This is obviously not a great situation. She acknowledged that. But it also doesn't demonstrate that there's widespread voter fraud in New Jersey or anywhere.
In New Jersey? 6,600 non-citizens made it onto the voter rolls. That's okay. To me, is pretty widespread voter fraud.
That's widespread?
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty bad if one person who's not a legal citizen in the United States.
The number of registered voters in the state?
New Jersey spends $60 billion over that overall on its budget. So I think if we're seeing...
Yeah, but I mean, you just said it's widespread. So where's the proof that it's widespread?
6,600 non-citizens made it onto the voter rolls.
That is 0.006% of registered voters in the state. Mikey Sherrill, she won her
I don't think it invalidates her election.
She won her election by 500,000 votes. There were 3.3 million ballots cast in that election. 400 ineligible voters. Let's say, because we don't even know, let's say they all voted for her, which maybe they did.
Yeah, it still wouldn't invalidate the election.
That would be about 1/100% of all the votes cast. Yeah. Widespread?
Yeah, 6,600 non-citizens made it onto the voter rolls. That's pretty bad. I think.
Hold on, widespread.
Yeah.
6,600 people who were inadvertently registered to vote. The vast majority of them never cast a ballot, and you're calling 400 maybe ballots cast by people who were registered as Republicans, as Democrats, as independents, as widespread in a state where there are 6.8 million registered voters?
Yeah, I'm with the governor of New Jersey on this. I think it's a pretty big problem.
That math doesn't math. Jesse.
Well, I didn't say it invalidated Mikey Sherrill's election result.
I didn't say you said that, but I also dispute the idea that there's any proof that this is widespread.
I think there are thousands of non-citizens on the voter rolls in New Jersey, and I'm pretty concerned about that. I would call it a widespread problem. I think the bigger problem here is that...
What's your definition of widespread, by the way? Is it 1%? Is it 2%?
I don't know, more than 100? I think it's a big problem. What's yours?
What's your tolerance for this?
Hold on. This is not about tolerance. This is about, is it widespread or is it something that is relatively rare,
You're pounding him over the word widespread. I just would ask you,
Scott,
what is your tolerance for any fraud at all?
Is it widespread?
Absolutely. Over 6,000 people.
What is your bar for widespread?
She said, my bar is I want no tolerance. I have zero tolerance.
So what is your tolerance for American citizens?
By the way, this isn't the only place this is happening.
What is your tolerance for American citizens whose valid voter registrations are invalidated by incorrect databases. What's your tolerance for that?
I don't have tolerance for any mistakes in the electoral system, including
Okay, well
putting
then,
non-citizens on the rolls.
So then why are we not keeping the same energy for that as we are for this?
I do have energy. As you know, I've come out here and long argued that every time we don't clean up the voter rolls, that every time a non-citizen makes it onto the voter rolls, it invalidates some legal person's vote.
What about when an
like
American is not allowed to vote when they are eligible to vote?
I don't have any tolerance for that either. An
Then
American
why- so then
citizen should
why
be
are
allowed to
you
vote.
okay with
but
the
American
administration-
citizens are invalidated
Why
when
are you
illegal
okay
aliens
then with the
are glitched onto the
administration
system.
using a system that a federal judge recently found was actively removing U.S. citizens from the voter rolls based on inaccurate information? Why are you comfortable with that system being used to check the voter rolls?
This is a convenient deflection for you. This is the worst possible story that could happen for Democrats right now regarding the debate over the SAVE Act. 6,600
These are
illegal
pretty simple
aliens
questions
on the
as far as
rolls
I can
in New
tell.
Jersey that you know about.
Can I tell you why I think this conversation is wrong? Because, first of all, this is not the worst possible conversation. This is actually a very good conversation for Democrats because Mikey Sherrill did exactly the right thing. She was transparent.
That's all I was saying.
Let me finish. She was transparent.
And it was good.
She was transparent. She was accountable. She immediately held the people accountable. She removed the software vendor, and she criticized the former governor, who was a Democrat, criticized the former governor for failing to address the problem. That's exactly what a responsible leader is supposed to do. Exactly the opposite of what Donald Trump did in his irresponsible speech last week. Exactly the opposite of what Donald Trump did when he lost the 2020 election and he told the people in Georgia he needs to find 11,780 votes, which, by the way, is voter fraud. This is not an issue about whether it's widespread or not. It's not, because it's really a question about, is it even fraud? This was not fraud. This was a mistake. People were given an option. Are you a U.S. citizen or not? They said no, but the computer system incorrectly registered them to vote. They didn't do anything of their own.
That's a fair
Fraud
point.
required them to do something on their own purposely to defraud the system.
The suggestion that this is fraud suggests that these people were trying to vote when they
400
knew
of
that
them
they
did.
I think fraud.
Exactly.
I think
Hold on.
they were-
But let's
they were
be honest.
registered by the state
sometimes,
incorrectly.
listen, there's been a lot of work done on situations like this. And going back, state by state, you can go state by state. There have been cases that have looked at it. They found, maybe a couple of dozen cases over the course of 10 years, 20 years. Sometimes what happens is that when state systems are incorrect, people receive information and they are confused.
But Abby,
and they're not voting
Abby,
because
this is a great
they're
point.
not voting because they're trying to defraud the system. They might have cast a ballot because they just weren't aware that they were incorrectly put on the voter roll.
They weren't aware that they weren't a citizen of the United States?
No,
They
but the question
said in
is,
this instance that they weren't
is
citizens.
this-
They were still
Is
registered.
this accurately described as fraud when none of these
Yes,
people tried to register to vote?
Yes,
They
because why?
cast ballots. 400 of them cast ballots. They had to actively go do that. I assume no one voted in their name. Maybe they did. I don't know. But they actively cast a ballot. Did they not?
What I want to, but
An illegal alien gets put on the rolls, however they got there, and cast a ballot.
I mean, but you
Sounds like voter fraud to me.
acknowledge that some people might actually be confused, because this has come up in courts before, where some people who are ineligible to vote are not aware that they're ineligible to vote.
Guys, widespread waste, fraud, and abuse doesn't require malice. It can be a product of government incompetence. That's my point from earlier.
Okay, that's a fair point.
I mean, you raised the issue.
That's why I
That's-
said
that- but
the state of New Jersey
I think
spends
it's a fair-
$60 billion
I think it's a
annually.
fair
Surely there's a
point.
gazillion other
I
examples.
think it's a fair point that it can be due to the government just being dumb about some of these things or making mistakes. But again, I do think it's whether it is widespread or not
So
matters.
clearly-
I do think that the numbers actually matter, because if the argument is that this is so widespread that you need to override the state's constitutional rights to run their elections, then you have to actually prove that that's
National
actually
voter ID is an 80% favorable
don't
issue.
prove, the numbers don't prove this conversation of widespread. Language matters. Saying widespread and fraud, it matters when, to the point that you were making and that you were making, if folks were being honest about the fact that they are not citizens, and yet it was a mistake on behalf of the actual machines, and then the Democrat in office took accountability for it, this is actually modeling making sure that our elections are safe and fair. But what is happening is, in order to ram through the SAVE Act, in order to
it doesn't
sow this
invalidate
discord, let me actually finish, to sow this discord that for some reason there's this quote unquote widespread voter fraud in this country, the Republicans, Donald Trump leading this, is taking this honest mistake that Democrats, again, are cleaning up.
He's correcting the mistake.
In order to push their agenda.
You are making the argument that because
the governor corrected her mistake.
She absolutely did. She did a good job of it. But the president's argument about that there's a widespread problem here is clearly
to ram through the SAVE Act that is actually unfair to many American people.
Clearly, it's a credible argument because this mistake was in place.
All right, we're going to leave it there.
The lesson here is uncomfortable for everyone. If you believe election integrity matters, then a software error that registers ineligible voters is a real scandal. If you believe facts matter, then you also have to admit this disclosure does not, by itself, prove the sweeping fraud narrative that national politicians want to build around it. What it proves is that election systems are only as trustworthy as the people in software maintaining them. And in an age of maximum polarization, even transparency can become ammunition. New Jersey's glitch may have started as a technical failure, but the reason it became national news is because both parties saw the same numbers and told two completely different stories about what America should fear most.